I'm here to talk about the moment that Star Wars stood out to me as a dad.
Star Wars spoke to me as a father.
I think Star Wars spoke to me so significantly as a dad.
What is the moment Star Wars stood out to me as a father?
By creed, until it is of age or reunited with its own kind, you are as its father.
Always remember, your focus determines your reality. Stay close to me.
If Luke couldn't reach him, how could I?
Luke is a Jedi. You're his father.
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
So be it, Jedi. With me, you will train the boy. He is the chosen one. I am your father.
I know there is good in you. The Emperor hasn't driven it from you fully.
Help me take this mask off. Let me look on you with my own eyes.
Strike me down in anger and I'll always be with you, just like your father.
Kylo Ren is dead. My son is alive.
The following presentation is part of the Beyond the Blast Doors network.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge, and tonight I am with Cher Lambeth from Ladies of the Legion and 501st. How are we doing tonight?
Doing well, thank you, and I hope you are too.
Definitely. Well, thank you for joining me. I kind of backstory. I had seen your kind of talk at Star Wars Celebration. I've been like a prospective 501st and Mando Mercs wannabe for a while, but
awesome. Yeah.
What I liked was it was but some of the things, because I'm 5'4" and I'm I was like, how do we do some of this stuff? But first of all, let's let you introduce yourself to the viewers and the listeners. Tell us about yourself and your voice in the fandom.
Yes, I'm Sherilyn, or Cher Lambeth, and I have been a long-time member of the 501st. I'm very proud to say I'm one of the really, really early members. I have a 3-digit TK ID, which we're up to 5 now, so that tells you how long we've been around. But I'm very proud to be one of the early female troopers. And with Ladies of Legions, which is a group that I'm an admin of, that's who we help. We help the Lady Troopers, the Mandalorian Mercs, the Rebel Legion folks. I'm also a member of the Rebel Legion. I have several Princess Leia costumes when I'm not being a Stormtrooper, and Saber Guild and some of the other Star Wars groups. So I've been in Star Wars fandom a long, long time, but have always enjoyed being a member of the 501st, and I'm glad to be an admin of Ladies of the Legions.
So kind of a bit of a backstory. How did kind of Ladies of the Legion come to be? Like, how did that kind of process start to kind of create that organization kind of within these costume groups?
Well, and the Ladies of the Legions, we just recently celebrated our 5th anniversary, April 27th. We were founded in 2015. Started mainly by one of our troopers named Nikki Powers. I give a shout out to Nikki. But we realized that, we all know, armor fits women a lot differently than it does men. And it's sometimes hard to get resources and advice that the ladies need to be able to make the armor fit them properly. And that's what we look to provide. That support, resources. We're always ready to help somebody with any costuming question that they may have.
Brilliant. Well, if you are new to the podcast, or now video, this is Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge, and every episode is broadcast from a Canon planet or moon in the Star Wars galaxy. And where are we going tonight?
I am currently stationed to help keep the peace on Tatooine.
Great. We're going to hand it over to Jerry, our resident canon junkie, who's going to tell us all about it.
Thanks, Shannon. Prepare your elaborate, ridiculously complicated plan to save your best friend from the clutches of a vile gangster, because we're heading back to Tatooine. A harsh desert world orbiting twin suns in the galaxy's outer rim, Tatooine is a lawless place ruled by Hutt gangsters. Many settlers scratch out a living on moisture farms, while spaceport cities, such as Mos Eisley and Mos Espa, serve as home base for smugglers, criminals, and other rogues. Tatooine's many dangers include sandstorms, bands of savage Tusken raiders, and carnivorous krat dragons. The planet is also known for its dangerous pod races, rampant gambling, and legalized slavery. Anakin Skywalker and Luke Skywalker both grew up on Tatooine, and Obi-Wan Kenobi spent years in hiding on this desolate world. Tatooine has had multiple canon appearances, and anytime we see a new desert planet, someone will ultimately always think that it's Tatooine. Captain, back to you.
Great. Thanks for that, Jerry. So, Cher, why did we pick Tatooine? Why does Tatooine kind of call to you as like kind of your canon planet of choice?
Tatooine has been featured in every single trilogy, which I thought was really fascinating. And it's interesting to note that I'm a member of the Carolina Garrison here in North Carolina. We cover North and South Carolina. We have our own version of Tatooine called Jockey's Ridge, which is a huge set of sand dunes out on the coast of North Carolina. And we have done multiple Tatooine photo shoots there. So I think that's one of the reasons Tatooine calls to me. I feel like I've almost been there in a sense.
That is awesome. Do you have the I'm gonna butcher these. You're gonna have to tell me these names. Do you have like the side pauldron or whatever to be like?
I don't. I'm not a sand trooper, but we have many sand troopers in our garrison who go out there, and stormtroopers were there as well. So I've gotten some great pictures of myself as a stormtrooper out on the ridge, and it's exciting to see. It literally does look like a scene straight out of the movie.
Nice. So what called to you to kind of be in the 501st? Because I can imagine kind of starting out, it must have been a bit daunting because there might not have been a ladies' presence at the time. Like, what really called to you to just say, you know what, I'm still going to do this?
Well, and you're correct. Back in the early days, the 501st was founded in 1997. Give a shout out to Alvin Johnson, who, in addition to being the founder, is a really dear old friend of mine. But when they first started the 501st, there were only a few handful of troopers all over. And I had made myself not the best set of biker scout armor to attend a premiere of the special edition of Return of the Jedi. And when I saw the other troopers, I actually encountered them at Dragon Con in Atlanta, 1998. I was like, oh, this is amazing. I have armor too. And they said, well, then you should join us. And I did. Eventually was able to get a better set of biker scout armor, and of course I've moved on since to multiple 501st costumes. We like to call ourselves bad guys doing good. We represent the bad guys of the Star Wars universe, like stormtroopers and Boba Fett, Darth Vader, but we do a lot of work in our various communities with charities and children's hospitals, and that's another thing that I really appreciate about our group. I really enjoy doing the children's hospital visits and working with the charities that we do. Here in the Carolinas, we work very closely with the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Oh, great. I think it's one of the reasons why it kind of called to me was I enjoyed kind of seeing the 501st and the Mando Mercs and Rebel Legion kind of at like premieres and things since like the special editions came out and whatnot. And I was just like, you know what, I sometimes feel a bit old now because I'm 35, but I was just like,
oh, goodness.
But I was just like, do you know what? I might try it. It is a bit expensive, but I think also what I think I find fascinating is some people are like, oh, well, you know, they're very specific and very picky. But that being said, I know you've probably heard of this, but now having the 501st being present in The Mandalorian kind of speaks to why that's necessary. So kind of to maybe people who don't know, break down kind of like say, I want to be a stormtrooper. What has to happen?
Absolutely. Well, of course, as you know, the geographical regions are broken up. We have what we call garrisons in areas throughout the world. And in every garrison, there are certainly people who will be more than happy to help anyone that wants to build a stormtrooper or any other set of armor or 501st costume. So you go through a process of building your costume, and we have what's called a CRL, a costume reference library. And that gives you some ideas of what you need to make your costume look like what it needs to look like to be approved. And it may take a few tries. You build your costume, you reference the CRL, you make sure you have all the aspects that are listed there. You submit it to what we call our member liaison, in our case, a garrison member liaison, and they help you go through your costume, help submit it for approval, and then you can approve it and get assigned your TK ID, as we call it.
And I love it. They're like, there is a list of like available TK IDs, and yeah, they are getting quite long. Like, Cher very, very graciously was on a kind of like, I don't know if you call it a documentary, but something called something was called The Moment Star Wars Spoke to Me. And I remember putting her TK number at the bottom of the lower thirds, and I was just like, that's a 3-digit number. Like, we're up to like 6 digits. I was like, that's why I was like, were you the first lady? Like, and things like that. But
I don't think I wouldn't claim myself to be the very first lady trooper, but I think I'm the lady trooper who's been active the longest. I will say that. I think I might have that distinction. But yeah, I'm so glad that we have so many women in the 501st now. As we like to tell people, the Empire is an equal opportunity employer.
So what would you say some of the things that obviously need adjusting in a lady's costume? Because like, so I know you can kind of find armor pieces from various sellers, but again, it's kind of intended for gentlemen. So what are some of the more common parts that have to be adjusted for us ladies?
Well, and certainly I know many ladies have problems. Our busts are larger than many men, and luckily my armor fits me quite well. I was able to have it cut and fit, or I was able to cut it and fit it to myself. Certainly in the case of the Mandalorians, for instance, they're able to create custom armor that fits their body type specifically. They're able to create their own custom character, their own custom armor, and that way they're able to make it fit them the way they want it to fit. But we all, certainly in Ladies of the Legions and in many of the garrisons as well, they'll be glad to offer resources and support to help figure out the way you need to cut something to make it fit, the way you need to heat and mold something perhaps to make it fit, or any other adjustments that you might need to make. And it's always interesting to me to see that many times if you see a row of stormtroopers standing together, you can't tell who's a man and who's a woman, which I think is fascinating until you kind of stand at ease, and then women often like kind of cock out their hips and move to the side, and then you can tell. But that's one of the things I love about doing the armor like this is we're able to be part of the group. I mean, we're able to make our suits look just as good as the guys.
That's awesome. So I hope you don't mind me keep referencing this way, but as someone who's been part of the 501st for so long, what are some changes that you have seen over the years, you know, for better or for worse, you know, just kind of, obviously it's an organization, all organizations evolve. What are some kind of moments that stand out to you?
Good moments, certainly. You were just talking about our standards earlier, and you're absolutely correct. I think it's the attention that the 501st pays to making sure that our costumes are really good that has allowed us to do things like be part of the Mandalorian. We also have been part of the Disney Star Wars weekends. Of course, they're not really doing the weekends anymore, but we were allowed to march in the parades with Disney Star Wars weekends for many years and be more and more part of the official Star Wars universe. And I think that not only our attention to detail, but the fact that we try to maintain a really good representation of the brand. You know, we try to put on a good face and do the best we can at every event and every appearance we do. And so I think that's certainly a very positive aspect of the changes that have come over the years. Certainly one of my favorite things that has come about is I am a huge Weird Al Yankovic fan. I've always been a big fan. And being able to be part of his shows when he does the Star Wars things on stage has been a great experience for me. So that has certainly been an amazingly positive experience being part of the 501st.
Nice. Now, I saw some of the photos that you had shared with me for your end credits of the moment Star Wars spoke to me. I see that you were in the Rose Bowl, which
I was.
that was quite a thing. Maybe explain to people who don't know what that meant and things, but it was a very significant meeting. I've seen it in various documentaries and things like that. So yeah, just take us through that whole day and just like how everything was.
That was also a really amazing experience for me. 2006, late 2006, Lucasfilm put out a call asking for troopers at all of the garrisons to submit marching videos. And they didn't say what it was for. They just said they were working on a project. So everybody who wanted to, we got together, we submitted marching videos, and came to discover it was that Lucasfilm was sending 2 troopers from every garrison to march in the Tournament of Roses parade behind Grand Marshal George Lucas. And that, I was one of the lucky troopers chosen. I was so excited to be part of that amazing event, not only being part of the parade, but also meeting troopers from all over the world. You know, as you know, the Tournament of Roses parade takes place on New Year's Day. They flew us out several days early so that we could practice marching. I believe we had actual Marine Corps drill instructors who helped us learn how to march. But not only were we able to do that, but we got a chance to socialize with each other. And on New Year's Eve, we started celebrating New Year's Eve with the folks in the Australian garrison, because of course that came earlier, and then just worked our way through Asia and Europe until we got to the United States and just celebrated New Year's all evening long.
Okay, I didn't hear that side of the story. That is pretty cool to be able, wow, okay, that's, because yeah, I don't know why I thought it was the Rose Bowl or something. I guess I thought it was like
it's called the Tournament of Roses parade, and it's the Rose Bowl football game.
Oh, it is that, okay. I haven't lived in the United States for like 10 years, so my knowledge is like... So, trooping. Explain kind of like trooping, and because that's another kind of prerequisite, or not prerequisite, but another thing is once you get your TK approved or things like that, there's now kind of like a next step, and one of those things is trooping. Kind of explain, okay, I've built my costume now, what's the next step?
Well, the next step is going to events, participating in events. To maintain your membership in the 501st, you'll need to do 1 official troop a year. And that's usually something, for instance, either a high-profile event, perhaps something that Lucasfilm might send us on, or a charity event, or a community event, things like that. And it's basically, you go to an event with your fellow troopers, you put on your armor. I know I've done, for instance, when the new movies come out, every time the new movies come out, we'll be a presence at a movie theater or other area where they're showing the movie and help promote that and be there in our armor. And it's a great experience. You know, our fellow troopers we're all friends. It's sort of like a family. You know, it's fun for us to get together and not only troop in our costume, but then just have a chance to socialize afterwards. So it's definitely a great part of being in the 501st, is doing an event with your fellow troopers.
Great. Is there any like ranks or anything like you can build up ranks, or is it kind of just like?
There aren't really ranks so much, but we have detachments for the different parts of the different troopers. For instance, there's the 1st Imperial Stormtrooper Detachment, which are the TKs, the stormtroopers that you see.
Okay.
There's the Pathfinder Detachment for the Biker Scouts. There's the Jolly Roger Squadron for the TIE Fighter pilots. So each costume, I guess you could say, pardon me a minute, each costume you could say has its own detachment. And there are not really ranks, but there are levels you can reach in those detachments. For instance, they're at the lower level, you know, you put together your costume, you've met the standards of the 501st, you're good to go. If you want to achieve the next level in your detachment, then, you know, you up your costume a little bit. Maybe you've got some of the higher end armor pieces, some of the higher end accessories, things like that. For instance, in the Pathfinders, one of the higher levels you can reach is called Lancer. And that means you have every little aspect of the costume that you can possibly have. And many people like to go for that. I mean, it definitely is an achievement, and you know, it's something that you put a lot of work and a lot of time and passion into. So I guess that's the closest thing we would have to ranks. We don't really have what you would consider ranks as in the military, but we do have those levels that people can work to reach if they want to. It's not required.
Nice. Yes, I'm very soft. If I was to be something 501st, it would definitely be Pathfinder Shore Trooper. That well also because of I'm thinking logistics, the leg isn't so difficult because you have more like the shins and you don't have to worry about the thighs kind of bits, and it's more just I've put a lot of thought into it.
Well,
But,
and don't let things like that stop you, because in addition to my TK, I also have a biker scout. I'm a biker scout. I'm also an Imperial officer. I haven't gotten it approved yet, but I have a Captain Rex that I've been working on. And my current project that I'm really excited about is I'm working on a Boba Fett, but it's a special Boba Fett. For people who may remember the Star Wars Holiday Special, when that came out years ago, I'm working on a Boba Fett based on that. And I'm hoping to be able to submit that and create a costume reference library piece on it.
Oh, brilliant. Because that was one of the pictures that unfortunately didn't make it into the closing credits. I'll put it on screen now, but I recognize it was like the holiday special Boba Fett because of the coloring and things, but yeah, I didn't realize that's so that one hasn't, like, it doesn't have its own CRL or anything. It's like a brand new out. That's exciting.
That would,
wow.
if I get it approved, and I'm getting ready to submit that, if I get it approved, I would be the first official in the Legion.
That's cool. Oh, I'm really rooting for that. That is really cool. So I'm very curious. We always get excited when the new films come out. There's always new troopers announced, at least 2 a film. And we always joke, I say it myself, I'm like, oh, I bet the 501st are excited. What happens like when these announcements come out? Like, do you guys immediately get on the message boards and are like, oh my God, this is great, or oh my God, here we go? Like, what like, kind of happens?
No, you're absolutely right. People get really excited about seeing new armor and new suits coming out that we can put into the 501st. And you're right, even long before the film comes out, the pictures that are leaked, people may have gotten some information. People are talking about, ooh, here's a new set of armor coming out. Let's see what we can do this. And so, yes, people are always excited to see the new costumes that are coming out in the movies and TV shows.
I'd have to say recently, 2 of my favorites are the Mud Trooper, the Mimban Mud Troopers, because that's fascinating because the mask comes off. Like, it's like a helmet. So I'm just thinking mechanically, I'm like, oh, that's going to be like a 2-piece thing. And then when the Sith Troopers were announced, all the little ridges and things, I mean, I was just like, oh, that's going to be awesome. But wow, that's not that's a fun one. And getting the right color of red, because that red's very difficult.
Yes, it is. Yeah, we've got a lot of different costumes in our costume reference library. And you stop and think there's not just the movies, but there are the animated series, of course, The Mandalorian now. There are multiple graphic novels and comic books out there where we have costumes that are approved. There's video games. So there are so many costumes out there that people don't even necessarily think about. Obviously, most folks recognize Darth Vader. They'll recognize a Stormtrooper, but they might not recognize a Knight of the Old Republic or, some of the other costumes that we have in our list.
And I think sometimes some people don't know is when you have a troop happening, and say you have a couple people, they have like an approved Darth Vader and things, that only one person in that troop can do it. You can't have duplicate kind of character or face characters or whatever. Like, you have to kind of pick. Like, how does that happen? Do you guys just kind of talk amongst yourselves, or how does something like that kind of go down?
Yes, that is exactly right. On troops such as that, we have our forums. Each garrison has their message boards or their forums. And say we have an event come in, for instance, a movie premiere, and we'll post up the event and say, okay, we need 1 Darth Vader, of course, and so many stormtroopers, and bounty hunters are welcome as well. And then people will sign up. And usually it's first come, first serve. If someone signs up and says, hey, I'm available, I would like to be Darth Vader, and they're the first one there, then they'll be Darth Vader. And many times, I have to say, most of our folks are so good about working with each other to say, all right, well, I'll be Darth Vader for the event Friday, and then you can be Darth Vader Saturday. That type of thing. So yes, you're correct. We only have 1 face character at an event. Of course, you can have multiple stormtroopers because we're the troops, multiple biker scouts. So that's one good thing about having a traditional stormtrooper such as this. I will say the stormtroopers and the newer troopers, they're one of the most requested characters and costumes that we get because they're recognizable. People love seeing those.
Nice. So I'm seeing you sit kind of in your TK outfit and things, and of course some of the questions that come to mind is, how does one stay cool? And how do you stay comfortable? Because these troops sometimes can take a long time. Like, do you put fans in your buckets? Do you, like, how does it all work? How do you keep kind of your personal safety kind of in mind?
So different people will do different things to their armors, and you're correct. Some people will put fans in their buckets. Some people wear cooling vests under their costume. Fortunately, I've never really had an issue with being overheated in my TK. It's built so that I've got plenty of space for ventilation to come through. But that is a concern. We always make sure to tell people, safety first. If you're feeling faint, if you're feeling sick, get behind the scenes, take your bucket off, get water, rest. We want to make sure, that people are safe first and foremost. But yes, different people will approach it in different ways and use different techniques to try to keep themselves cool.
Because, I one of the things I was designing kind of my Mando Merc design, but because I have epilepsy, I was been thinking about the design where it's like, what is something where I can take things off quickly if something happens. So I was thinking of like, oh, okay, so what I had in mind was short sleeves, but like a long glove, so that gloves can come off. It's kind of the joy of the Mando Merc, where you have a bit more things, but obviously a little more different with the 501st, where it's like it's a more regulated thing. But so that's why I was curious, because there is always kind of like, what if you're diabetic? What if you have epilepsy, or things like that, where you're like, oh, something has to come off very quickly. But
and you're right, those are definitely concerns as well. And I was fortunate to have a fellow trooper help me with the rigging, the underneath rigging in my armor. I've got a harness on that everything clips to. And if I ever got into trouble, basically I would only have to unclip like 2 or 3 clips and the whole thing would fall off.
Oh, nice.
And that works really well. Luckily, I've never had to try that out yet, but it's good to know that if I need to get out of armor really quickly, I could.
So when you talk about kind of the way it fastens, I know sometimes this is a fun debate on the message boards and things, but like what would you, because I know some people are like, no, it needs to be magnets, or it needs to be Velcro, or it needs to be snaps. Like, what is your weapon of choice to kind of attach? Because I know this is like not a heated topic, but there's discussions on like who does what.
No, you're correct. There's a lot of passionate discussion about that. And I use a combination of things. I don't really have magnets on any of my armor because I will admit my armor's a little older. I got my first set of Biker Scout armor. Well, I built a first set in '97 and then got plastic armor a year later. And so, and I'm up to like my 3rd or 4th rendition of Biker Scout armor. So each time you upgrade it, each time you put it together a little bit differently because the technology changes. The plastics for many things are different. Of course, this is what's called ABS plastic. But a lot of people are 3D printing armor pieces now. 3D printing has certainly vastly changed the face of the technology. And on this particular suit, which was put together in 2007, I think, I've got a combination of quick release buckles and Velcro and snaps holding everything together. So I like using a combination of things because one thing that works well on one piece might not necessarily work the same on the other piece. And it's held together really well. As I said, it's going on 13, 14 years now, and over all that time, it's held together quite well.
I was just about to say, I'm very impressed that you can still fit something from like 2007. I know I can't fit stuff from 2007, so fair play, fair play. So obviously there's a lot of pieces involved, and I'm very curious, how does one transport things from home to a troop? Surely you don't wear it. You don't go into your car or go on public transport and wear your TK. Like, what do you personally do to kind of transport your armor and things?
Most of us have what we call armor bins, which are like the big storage bins you could get at, supply stores, shout out like Lowe's or Home Depot, the big tool carrying bins. And I have a bin that has literally been with me all around the world. And it's falling apart. The hinges on it are broken. It needs some work, or I really should get a new one, but I can't part with it because, as I said, it's been with me all over the world. It's got stickers. It's like one of those old-fashioned traveling trunks where they used to put all the travel stickers all over it. I have those from the various garrisons I visited and trooped with and the places I've been. So yeah, I've got a big bin. It's got wheels on the end of it, and you can roll it along. And it's fairly large, but I've gone with it almost everywhere.
Nice. I went to the Chicago Cubs game last year at
Oh, wow.
Celebration, and I saw we were in the lift or the elevator. Excuse me. There's my British term there. We were in the lift, and I saw a few people with these and I was like, they have to be 501st, or
That's
they
exactly
have to be, because my dad's he loves building models. So when I kind of told him about I was interested in this, he was like, "Hey, this is something you do together." But unfortunately, trying to figure out how to ship things from the U.S. and UK anyway. But it was just like he's like, "That's got to be armor and things." I'm like, "Oh yeah, definitely, definitely."
Oh yes.
So another question I kind of saw while I was at Celebration on like the show floor and things was I saw a lot of people not in like their TK outfits, but they had these kind of shirts, that very bright kind of 501st shirts and vests and patches, kind of like that seems like another part of kind of the fun kind of cosplay. Can I say cosplay, or does that sound, is that like it's not the same level?
I think we a lot of what we do is cosplay. I mean, we're in our costumes, and you're absolutely correct. Each garrison puts out merchandise is a huge thing. I mean, we have a merchandise officer. We have both the Legion merchandise officer, and then each garrison has a merchandise officer. So merchandising is a huge thing. You're talking about the shirts, the patches. Of course, anything that we produce has to be approved by Lucasfilm and Disney. It has to have adhere to certain standards. And so, it has to go through a whole approval process. But we have a group called the Patch Traders, and boy, those guys are some serious collectors. There's some major patch collecting that goes on, and they'll get together at conventions such as Dragon Con, celebrations, and they will trade patches with each other. And it's actually really neat to see. I only collect patches that I've gotten at events, events that I've gone to that mean something to me, but it's really fun to go into the patch traders and watch them and see how many patches people have and what they can trade. So yes, you are correct. That is a huge part of it as well.
No, that's really cool. I didn't grab it down, but yeah, I've got the celebration from the Mando Mercs kind of one, and like that nice blue teal, and like it's really fascinating and things. So it's just getting the time. That would be my next question, is like, how much would you say, we'll do it in dollars because obviously I know I'm in England, but how much would you say kind of starting off, kind of that level 1 TK kind of costs somebody to make?
It varies. And if I remember correctly, I think back in 2007, a suit such as mine, the basic armor, and that's just the armor pieces, the armor itself ran about 700. But that didn't include like your undersuit, your boots, your blaster, any rigging that you needed. So, it depended then on where you got it from. And now, of course, it can run the gamut. There's so many different suits out there right now that you can get, and they can be very expensive. Darth Vader back then ran about 4,000, if I remember correctly, to be able to put the whole costume together. But many times, and me personally, it's hard for me to put a number or a dollar system on what I do, because I'll often work in barter. I'll trade someone like a neck seal for a particular armor piece or repair piece, or I'll help somebody with any other of the soft parts of their armor. I can vacuum form. I just don't have a vacuum form table. So it's nice to be able to trade with folks, and that's another great thing about the 501st. If you don't have something, someone else might, and they will certainly be willing to work with you to help you get it.
Nice. Now, that being said, I can unfortunately see there is a level of someone could kind of take advantage of that and really make a very bad set of armor and kind of shortchange or gyp people. Is there something where you guys can kind of say, hey, don't get from this person, or hey, no, that's not, you don't waste your money, or things like that? Is there a way, kind of a fail safe? Because everyone out there kind of takes advantage, knowing a lot of people want to be in the 501st and things. Is there any way you guys can kind of protect new people kind of wanting to get in, but not basically being cheated?
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't want to say that we necessarily maintain an official list, but I know every garrison, everyone in the 501st has a pretty good idea of who produces quality things and who doesn't. And certainly if a prospective member comes to us and said, hey, I'm thinking about buying my armor from this person, many people will jump in and say, we advise against it. You should not go from that person. But check out this person. Their armor is really good. And we were talking a little bit about this before the broadcast. Being a professional prop builder myself, I really have an issue with what's called recasters, people who will buy someone's armor and then cast molds off of it and make copies of that. And it's like a Xerox. The more copies you make of a copy, the worse the quality gets. And so, I always try to keep an eye out for that kind of thing and warn people, it's like, hey, if this armor is not up to standards, yes, definitely don't buy it. But, go to this person. Theirs is definitely up to standard.
Nice. So yeah, we kind of covered a lot about 5.0 first and kind of that. But yeah, let's talk about you, because you actually kind of have quite a fascinating backstory as well. So let's talk about like what your like day job is on things, because you just mentioned you were like a prop builder and things. So we were kind of talking about like puppetry and things. So we kind of have like a weird shared universe thing going on.
Yes, it's my real job, I guess, for lack of a better word, is I am a professional costume prop and puppet builder for film and TV. I've had the amazing opportunity to work on some incredible projects. Years ago, I worked with the Jim Henson folks on Dinosaurs and Muppet Christmas Carol, which was a great experience. More recently, I helped build puppets for the European tour of Avenue Q, which was a lot of fun. And I've worked on a lot of films and TV shows that were here in my home state of North Carolina. I was on Homeland for quite a while. Also did a little bit of work on The Hunger Games, another film here, The Patriot, Leatherhead. So yeah, I've been lucky to have some amazing experiences and work on some great projects.
So when you say like the Hunger Games, are you talking about kind of like the weapons or kind of the exotic kind of food they had? Like what was some of it? Because that's tweaked my ear a bit. I was like, what did you do for the Hunger Games?
What I did for the Hunger Games was I actually did what they call a stylist. I did some stylist work for some of the promotions that they did for the film. So my main thing is costuming, but I also do a lot of props. And as we were just talking, I do a lot of puppets as well. Basically crafting things. And they shot the Hunger Games here in North Carolina. You can still see some of the sites where they shot those. And I worked at I did some work at one of the main studio areas that they were at. So that's what I did for the Hunger Games. But I've done that for quite a few other projects as well.
Nice. So I'm curious, what came first? Was it the day job or the 501st stuff? The chicken and the egg here. What came first?
The job, interestingly, and Star Wars was what prompted my interest in costumes, props, and especially creatures. I was fascinated by the alien creatures in the cantina scene. I was like, that is really interesting. And of course, like many kids, I grew up on Sesame Street. I grew up with the Muppets, and I loved them. I've always been such a huge fan of Jim Henson. As a friend of mine put it, and I have to agree, the Muppet creators, Henson and his colleagues, were pretty much just out to amuse themselves, and we were along for the ride. And I think that's a really good way to put it. And I sometimes think the Star Wars universe started out that way too. George Lucas had this idea. He was turned down several times when he presented Star Wars, and finally 20th Century Fox picked it up. And of course it took off. And I don't think he had any idea back then where Star Wars would end up. None of us did. But it definitely piqued my interest and showed me that, wow, this is the thing. You can do this. And that's what prompted me to pursue a career in creatures and television and film. And it's definitely been an interesting ride ever since. And then being able to actually be a stormtrooper, how cool is that?
That's amazing, because mine was kind of similar, and I think it's quite exciting because I feel like puppetry is kind of having this renaissance again.
Yes.
Because I, as a visual effect person, I can love and I respect the prequels from that sense, because I feel they were like, all right, let's push visual effects as far as we can. But then I feel the sequel trilogy has kind of brought that back and then brought practical back, and it's this beautiful marriage. And I think it's very cool that we saw that in the sequel trilogy, and now The Mandalorian, I feel, is really that beautiful marriage and things. But the one that I guess I personally worked on that I really felt was like the Dark Crystal. And that was so that's why when you told me about working on Dinosaur thing, I was like, I watched that, that was awesome. So really quick, I know it's not kind of Star Wars related, but so that was people where you weren't the person like in the actual.
No.
Okay.
No, I was one of the builders, and the thing about dinosaurs was at the time the Henson folks had a workshop in New York. Unfortunately, it's not really there now, but we would build the dinosaur costumes in New York and then ship them to LA for finishing and to be filmed. So you were correct, they are people in costumes, but the faces were radio controlled. They were animated by off-site puppeteers who were doing radio control. So that was a really interesting kind of blend of those two technologies, an actual puppeteer performer inside, and then a puppeteer with the radio control unit. So that was a really neat part of the dinosaurs. It was a great show, I thought, with all of that together.
Nice. Okay, because that kind of shows that they've had that technology kind of for a while, because I'm thinking recently of Babu Frick. And what I thought was amazing was to have the actual actress literally doing the voice in real time, and she's doing the puppeteering. Well, not just her, obviously, but like that, I just thought that was very cool. That I was like, okay, wow, we are really reaching a point to where it's not just it's some puppeteers doing that number kind of thing. But that's cool to see that. Yeah. Yes, let me tell you, we painted out a lot of rods for the dark crystal. Well, it's funny because we had this debate. We were like, do we keep it because that's part of its charm, or do we get rid of them kind of thing? And we ultimately decided to get rid of them, only because of like a lot of set extensions that was happening. So we didn't want it. So it wasn't because we're like, get rid of the rods, because it's still part of its charm, kind of thing. But awesome. So anything else you'd like to talk about?
Only that I highly encourage anybody who has a love of Star Wars, has a love of costuming, come and join us. A lot of people are really surprised still to find that there are female troopers. And nothing makes me happier than going to an event and seeing a little girl who's afraid to approach us. And then when I say hello to her and when she realizes it's a girl in there, her face lights up. So that to me is certainly always an amazing experience. And of course, the charity work that we do, the hospital visits that we do, you just don't know the effect you have on those people in there. So I highly recommend to anybody who's interested in this type of thing, please come and join us.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on the show and dealing with a little bit of some technical difficulties and things. But Cher, where can people find you?
People can find me. My professional Facebook page is Sherilyn Lambeth on Facebook. I'm Cher Lambeth on Instagram and also on Twitter. And my website is sherilynlambeth.webs.com. That's my professional website and costume portfolio. And so they can certainly find me on all of those aspects of social media. And I'll say too, I always love talking to people about what I do. If they have questions about the industry, about the 501st, about anything, I'm more than happy to answer any questions anybody might have.
Great. And you can find me on Twitter at PCGE_podcast. I'm also, that's pretty much where I'm at. I'm also on Instagram at Postcards from the Galaxy's Edge. And they always have an episode every Wednesday on the new Beyond the Blast Doors network, where you could also find great shows like Streaming Star Wars, which is talking about all things Disney Plus, Around the Galaxy, which is kind of like an interview show where we interview various people kind of in the Star Wars fandom. Bombadcast, which is kind of like your fanboy, just millennial kind of fun stuff. And then Beyond the Blast Doors Live, which is the kind of like a weekly live news show. And cannot forget our guys at Holo Chronicles, which cover all things Star Wars collecting. So, as I said again, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you guys for checking this out or listening to us. And we will see you guys next time.